I woke up on freezing concrete with the taste of metal in my mouth and no idea where I was. For a few seconds, I honestly thought I was dying. My head pounded so hard it felt like someone was swinging a hammer behind my eyes. Every part of my body ached. The smell hit next. Garbage. Old beer. Urine. I opened my eyes slowly and realized I was lying behind some abandoned warehouse in an industrial part of Cleveland I had never seen before. My wallet was gone. My phone was gone. Even my watch had disappeared from my wrist. At 66 years old, I had never blacked out a single day in my life. The last thing I clearly remembered was sitting beside my son-in-law Nathan at a downtown bar after signing loan papers for my daughter Emily's new house. He kept smiling at me like I had just changed their lives forever. Maybe I had, just not the way I thought. I forced myself to stand, gripping the brick wall beside me while the world spun violently around me. My legs barely worked. My mouth felt dry enough to crack. An hour later, I stumbled into a gas station and borrowed a cashier's phone. Emily answered immediately. "Dad, oh my God, where are you?" Her voice was shaking. I checked the call log while she talked. 17 missed calls. 17. Nathan told her I had gotten confused at the bar and wandered off by myself. He said I had been acting strange all night. Said I probably drank too much. But something about that story felt wrong immediately. Because I remembered the last drink. The strange bitterness underneath the sweetness. The way Nathan watched me while I struggled to focus. And deep down, before I even made it home that morning, I already knew one thing. That man had done something to me. Looking back now, the part that still haunts me most is how completely Nathan fooled all of us. Especially me. My daughter Emily met him almost 2 years earlier at a charity fundraiser downtown. At the time, she was 32, overworked, exhausted, and still carrying emotional scars from a painful breakup that had nearly destroyed her confidence. Losing her mother young had made her cautious with people, especially men. Then Nathan appeared. He knew exactly how to make people feel safe. He remembered birthdays without reminders. He opened doors. He sent flowers for no reason. Every Sunday afternoon, he came to my house carrying groceries I never asked for and fixed things before I even noticed they were broken. One weekend, he repaired my back fence during a thunderstorm because he did not want me climbing ladders at my age. Another time, he drove nearly 40 miles at midnight just because Emily called him crying after a stressful day at work. Nobody questioned a man like that. You trust him automatically. And when Emily became pregnant, Nathan somehow became even more attentive. He talked about family constantly. Stability. Security. Fresh starts. He painted beautiful pictures of the future until even I started believing them. After my wife, Carol, passed away years earlier, Emily became my entire world. I raised her alone while working construction jobs that destroyed my knees and shoulders long before retirement ever came. Every overtime shift, every missed vacation, every sacrifice I made had one purpose: giving my daughter a safer life than the one we had after Carol died. So when Nathan started talking about buying a home before the baby arrived, I wanted to help. Maybe too badly. The morning we signed the loan papers, Emily sat beside me at the bank with one hand resting over her stomach while Nathan paced around excitedly talking about nurseries and backyard barbecues. I remember feeling proud. Needed. Useful again. The loan officer warned me twice that $275,000 was a heavy burden for someone my age, but Nathan immediately stepped in with reassuring confidence. "We will take care of everything, Daniel. You are helping your family build something permanent." Then came the paperwork. Page after page. Nathan leaned over my shoulder explaining complicated legal terms in simple language. He pointed where to sign, told me which sections mattered, and which ones were standard bank language. I never once considered that he might be lying. That is the dangerous thing about people like Nathan. They never force trust. They earn it slowly until handing them your future feels completely natural. When the signing finally ended, Nathan smiled, clapped me on the back, and said something that still makes me sick to remember. "Tonight we celebrate like family." Nathan took me to a sports bar called Murphy's about 20 minutes from the bank. It was dark inside despite the afternoon sun outside. Old wooden tables. Neon beer signs glowing against the walls. The kind of place where people stayed longer than they planned because time disappeared once the drinks started flowing. I normally avoided bars like that, but that afternoon felt different. Nathan kept talking about the baby, about family vacations, about teaching his future son baseball someday. Every conversation somehow circled back to gratitude. You changed our lives today, Daniel. Emily will never forget what you did for us. Hearing that from him affected me more than I expected. At my age, people stop looking at you like someone important. Most conversations become reminders about medications, doctor appointments, or slowing down. But Nathan made me feel respected, useful, like I still mattered. The first two drinks felt normal enough. Whiskey, nothing unusual. Then Nathan ordered a final round. This one is smoother, he said with a grin. Local specialty. The drink tasted strange immediately. Sweeter than whiskey, but with something bitter underneath it that stayed on my tongue longer than it should have. Nathan watched me carefully while I drank it. Not casually, carefully. At first I thought maybe I had simply skipped lunch and the alcohol was hitting harder than usual. But within minutes, something felt deeply wrong. The room blurred around the edges. Voices echoed strangely. My hands became numb. I tried focusing on the television above the bar, but the screen kept drifting in and out of focus like my brain could no longer process movement correctly. Nathan asked if I was feeling okay, but his voice sounded distant somehow. Hello. I remember trying to answer him. I remember struggling to lift my glass. And I remember the expression on his face changing. The warm family man disappeared for just a second. What replaced it was cold, patient, almost calculating. That was the moment fear hit me. Real fear. Because suddenly I understood this was not normal intoxication. Something had been put in my drink. The last clear memory I have from that night is Nathan grabbing my shoulder while I nearly slipped off the bar stool. Easy there, Daniel, he whispered calmly. Let me help you outside. Then everything went black. 18 hours of my life disappeared after that moment. By the time Emily drove me home from that gas station, my body felt weak enough to collapse. But the physical exhaustion was nothing compared to the feeling growing inside my chest. Something terrible had happened while I was unconscious. I could feel it. Emily helped me inside and immediately started making coffee while I stood under a hot shower, trying to clear my thoughts. That was when I noticed the bruises on my arms. Finger marks. Dark purple fingerprints pressed into my skin like someone had dragged me while I could not fight back. When I walked into the kitchen afterward, Emily looked pale. Terrified. Dad, I need to ask you something honestly. I sat across from her slowly. What is it? She turned her phone toward me. The loan money is gone. For a second, I genuinely thought I misunderstood her. What do you mean gone? The transfer happened this morning, she whispered. But the account is empty now. The bank says the money was legally moved to another account under Nathan's authorization. The room went completely silent. Nathan's authorization. I suddenly remembered him leaning over my shoulder during the paperwork at the bank, explaining forms, pointing where to sign, smiling calmly while I trusted every word he said. My stomach dropped. He tricked me. Emily kept shaking her head like refusing to believe the words herself. Maybe there is some explanation. Maybe the money was moved temporarily for closing costs or taxes or something. I called the bank immediately. The loan officer confirmed everything. During the signing process, I had unknowingly signed documents granting Nathan legal access to the funds as my financial representative. The transfer happened early that morning while I was unconscious. Nathan had emptied every dollar. Emily started crying quietly while I sat frozen at the kitchen table staring at nothing. The amount felt unreal now. $275,000. 15 years of debt attached to my name. And suddenly, every moment from the previous day looked different. The extra loan amount, the rushed paperwork, the celebration drinks, the fake concern. All of it had been planned. We drove to the address Nathan claimed was their future home, hoping desperately there had been some misunderstanding. There was not. An older man watering his lawn across the street looked confused when we asked about the property. That house sold months ago, he told us. Young couple from Michigan bought it back in spring. Emily went completely pale. Nathan had shown her photos, walked her through rooms, talked about where the baby's crib would go. None of it was real. As we pulled back into my driveway later that evening, a black sedan was already waiting outside my house. A detective stepped onto my porch holding a folder full of photographs. And the moment I saw Nathan smiling beside other families in those pictures, I realized my daughter had married a stranger. The detective introduced himself as Detective Harris from Financial Crimes. The moment he opened that folder on my kitchen table, Emily stopped breathing normally. Photograph after photograph showed Nathan standing beside different women, different families, different houses in different states. Only none of them knew him as Nathan. In one photo, he was Brandon Pierce. In another, he called himself Michael Reed. Different names, different careers, different lives. Same smile, same eyes, same carefully practiced charm. Detective Harris explained everything with the calm voice of someone who had delivered terrible news many times before. Your son-in-law is part of a long-running fraud operation targeting families with elderly relatives who have financial assets. Emily looked physically sick. No, that is impossible. We were married. Harris nodded gently. Yes, and according to records from Arizona and Nevada, he was likely married to 2 other women during that same period. Emily covered her mouth and ran toward the bathroom before she could stop herself from vomiting. I sat there staring at the photographs while my entire understanding of the last 2 years collapsed inside my head. Nathan never existed. Not really. Every story he told us had been constructed carefully. The successful financial consultant job was fake. The college degree was fake. Even stories about his childhood had probably been rehearsed for years before he ever met Emily. These men study people the way hunters study prey, Detective Harris explained quietly. They learn emotional weaknesses, loneliness, family guilt, fear of aging. Then they slowly become exactly who the victim needs them to be. That sentence stayed with me. Exactly who the victim needs them to be. Nathan had become the son I never had. The dependable husband Emily dreamed about after years of heartbreak. The future father everyone trusted automatically. None of it was real. Harris continued explaining how similar scams worked across multiple states. Elderly parents signed loans or property transfers believing they were helping family. Then money disappeared before victims fully understood what happened. Some families never recovered financially. Others never recovered emotionally. Did he ever care about Emily at all? I asked finally. The detective paused before answering. Men like him usually imitate love very convincingly. Sometimes, even they cannot separate the performance from reality anymore. That answer somehow hurt worse, because it meant every memory now carried doubt. Every smile, every hug, every promise. Emily slowly returned from the bathroom with tears streaming down her face. I should have seen it, she whispered. God, how did I not see it? Detective Harris shook his head immediately. Professional manipulators survive because they know exactly how to avoid suspicion. Shame is part of the trap. Victims blame themselves instead of the criminal. I wanted to comfort my daughter. I really did. But deep down, another fear had already started forming inside me. Because while Nathan may have stolen my money, I had a terrible feeling he was about to steal something far worse. My relationship with my daughter. The first few days after Detective Harris visited felt like living inside a nightmare that refused to end. Emily barely slept. She cried constantly. Some moments, she looked furious at Nathan. Other moments, she defended him without even realizing she was doing it. At first, I told myself she was simply overwhelmed, pregnant, humiliated, emotionally shattered. But slowly, something changed in the way she talked about what happened. The language shifted. Nathan became less responsible. I became more responsible. One afternoon, my younger sister called from Texas, sounding strangely cautious. Daniel, Emily says you have been very confused lately. I froze. What are you talking about? She hesitated before answering. She said the stress from retirement has affected your memory. She thinks maybe you mixed up the paperwork and embarrassed yourself after drinking too much. It felt like someone punched me directly in the chest. I ended the call quickly and stared at the wall for almost 10 minutes before moving again. That evening, I confronted Emily in my kitchen. You told the family I am confused. Emily immediately became defensive. I did not know what else to say. You could have told them the truth. The truth sounds insane, Dad. My husband drugged you, stole hundreds of thousands of dollars, lived under fake identities, and disappeared across state lines? Do you hear how crazy that sounds? Because it is crazy, Emily. That is exactly why detectives are investigating him. She started pacing the kitchen while tears rolled down her cheeks. You do not understand what people are saying about me. At work, online. Even neighbors are gossiping now. Everyone thinks I was stupid enough to marry a criminal. I softened my voice. Emily, you were manipulated. But she shook her head violently. No, I ignored things because I wanted the life you promised me. I wanted the perfect family so badly that I stopped questioning anything. For a moment, I thought she finally understood. Then she looked directly at me and said something I will never forget. Maybe if you had not signed everything so quickly, none of this would have happened. That hurt more than losing the money. because suddenly I was not just the victim anymore. I was becoming the embarrassment she needed to explain away. Over the next several days, relatives stopped calling with support and started calling with concern. A former coworker asked gently if I had considered seeing a doctor about memory issues. Another friend hinted maybe alcohol had affected my judgment. Emily had quietly created a new version of reality where I was simply an aging man losing control of his mind. Then came the final humiliation. 2 police officers arrived at my front door for a wellness check. Emily had reported concerns about my mental stability. I stood there speechless while strangers questioned whether I could safely live alone in my own home. After they left, I sat in silence for hours. I kept replaying every sacrifice I had ever made for my daughter. Working double shifts after Carol died. Missing birthdays because bills needed paying. Selling my truck once just to keep Emily in college. And now the same little girl I spent my life protecting was convincing people I could no longer trust my own memory. That night I realized something painful. Nathan had not only stolen my money, he had poisoned the one relationship in my life that mattered most. But he also made one critical mistake. He underestimated an old man who had absolutely nothing left to lose. Something changes inside a person once they stop worrying about looking foolish. After the wellness check, I stopped trying to defend myself emotionally and started focusing on facts instead. Facts cannot be manipulated as easily as feelings. 3 days later, my neighbor Mrs. Harper knocked quietly on my front door, holding a plate of muffins she clearly forgot to bake long enough. She looked nervous. "Daniel." I almost did not mention this because I thought maybe it was family business. My instincts sharpened immediately. "What is it I saw Nathan here early Wednesday morning? Around 5 maybe. He was loading boxes into a moving truck from your garage." My heart started pounding. "What kind of boxes?" "Electronics mostly. Some smaller containers too." I remember thinking it seemed strange since Emily told everyone they were buying a new house. The moment she left, I searched my home carefully. My television was gone. My laptop was gone. My late wife's jewelry box had disappeared. Even my small coin collection was missing from the bedroom closet. Nathan had robbed me while I was unconscious. And suddenly the shame I carried started transforming into anger. Quiet anger. Focused anger. The next breakthrough came from an unlikely source. My 16-year-old neighbor Ethan. The kid practically lived online and could find information faster than most private investigators. When I explained that I needed help locating someone using fake identities, his eyes lit up like I had handed him a detective novel. Within hours, Ethan uncovered dating profiles connected to Nathan across multiple states. Different names, different careers, different relationship statuses. One profile claimed he was a widowed military veteran. Another said he owned luxury vacation properties in Arizona. Every version of him was designed to attract trust quickly. Then Ethan found something even worse. Court records, fraud lawsuits, identity theft complaints, and one active divorce case in Nevada filed by a woman named Rebecca Lawson. The dates made my stomach turn. Nathan had legally married Emily while still married to another woman. This was never improvisation. It was a business model. As Ethan kept digging, we uncovered photos of Nathan with elderly couples from Colorado, Nevada, and Arizona. Every family looked painfully similar to ours. Single parent. Financial stability. Adult daughter emotionally attached to him. He hunted vulnerability with terrifying precision. That night, I sat alone in my living room staring at printed evidence spread across the coffee table. For the first time since waking up in that alley, I no longer felt confused. I felt clear, cold, determined. Then Ethan traced activity from Nathan's phone to Las Vegas. And the moment I saw that location appear on the screen, I made my decision immediately. If the police could not stop him fast enough, I would find him myself. Las Vegas felt exactly like the kind of city Nathan would choose to disappear into. Bright lights, fake identities, people gambling with money that did not belong to them. I found him 2 days later inside the Bellagio casino, sitting confidently at a high-stakes poker table wearing a tailored gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. For a moment, I simply stood there watching him, laughing, relaxed, completely untouched by the destruction he left behind in Ohio. My daughter cried herself to sleep every night while he ordered expensive whiskey and stacked poker chips like trophies. I expected to feel rage when I finally saw him again. Instead, I felt calm, dangerously calm. I waited nearly an hour before following him toward the casino bar during a break. Nathan turned around halfway through ordering a drink. The expression on his face changed instantly. Not guilt, not fear. Calculation. "Daniel," he said slowly. "Wow. I did not expect to see you here." I slid onto the stool beside him. "Funny. After everything you stole, I figured the least you could do was say goodbye properly." His smile returned carefully. "I think there has been some misunderstanding." I placed a thick envelope on the bar between us. Inside were copies of everything Ethan and I uncovered. Fake identities, marriage records, fraud lawsuits, photos of other victims. Nathan stared at the envelope without touching it. For the first time since meeting him, he looked uncertain. "You have been busy," he muttered quietly. "You destroyed my daughter's life." Nathan exhaled slowly and leaned back. "Your daughter wanted a fantasy, Daniel. I simply gave her one." That sentence told me everything about who he really was. No guilt, no remorse. People like Nathan viewed emotions as tools. Nothing more. He lowered his voice. "Listen carefully. The police already think you are unstable. Emily told half your family you have memory problems. Even if you hand over this evidence, nobody fully trusts you anymore." He thought that would break me. Instead, I smiled. "You still do not understand your mistake, Nathan." His eyes narrowed. "And what mistake is that you thought getting older made me weak? What it actually did was make me patient." For the first time, genuine tension appeared across his face. I stood up slowly. Then I gave him the worst news possible. "You are not running from one victim anymore. Every family you destroyed is talking to each other now. And this time, you picked the wrong old man to underestimate." Most people think revenge looks loud. Yelling, courtroom speeches, public humiliation. But real revenge is usually quiet, patient, precise. After confronting Nathan in Las Vegas, I already knew he was preparing another scam. Men like him never stop voluntarily. They simply move to the next target before consequences catch up. With help from Ethan and Detective Harris, we tracked frequent calls connected to a wealthy widow named Patricia Dawson, 72 years old. Recently lost her husband. Large inheritance. Exactly Nathan's type. I asked Detective Harris for permission to approach her directly before Nathan disappeared again. Surprisingly, he agreed. Patricia lived in an expensive high-rise overlooking the Strip. When she opened the door, she looked elegant and intelligent, the kind of woman people assume could never be manipulated. That assumption almost ruined her life. I introduced myself calmly and explained everything from the beginning. At first, she defended Nathan immediately. Robert would never do that. Robert. Another fake name. Then I showed her the photographs, the lawsuits, the marriage records, and finally, a picture of Emily pregnant beside the man Patricia believed genuinely loved her. Patricia sat down slowly, without saying a word for nearly a full minute. Then she whispered something heartbreaking. "He asked me to invest $200,000 in a real estate partnership yesterday. The exact same pattern. The exact same promises. The exact same manipulation." That evening, Patricia agreed to cooperate with police investigators. Detective Harris arranged for her to wear a recording device during Nathan's next visit. Listening to those recordings later made my stomach turn. Nathan used the same tone with Patricia that he used with Emily. Warm, protective, patient. He spoke about trust constantly while preparing to rob her blind. At one point, he gently told her not to worry about paperwork because he could handle everything personally. The same words he told me at the bank. The arrest happened the following morning. Police officers entered Patricia's apartment while Nathan prepared electronic transfer documents connected to her accounts. They recovered fake identification cards, multiple phones, stolen financial records, and evidence tied to several states. Detective Harris called me 2 hours later. "We got him, Daniel." Simple words. But after weeks of humiliation, doubt, and emotional destruction, hearing them felt heavier than I expected. Not because Nathan was finally caught, but because for the first time since this nightmare began, I knew I had not imagined any of it. Emily came to my house 3 days after Nathan's arrest. The moment I opened the door, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, like someone who had spent weeks fighting reality and finally lost. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she started crying immediately. Not the controlled crying I had seen before. This was different. Complete collapse. I stepped aside quietly and let her in. She sat at the kitchen table where this entire nightmare had truly started and stared down at her hands for a long time before speaking. I need to tell you the truth, Dad. I stayed silent. At first, I really believed Nathan loved me, she whispered. Even after Detective Harris showed us everything, part of me kept hoping there had been some mistake because accepting the truth felt unbearable. Tears rolled down her face again. Then when everyone started asking questions, I panicked. I was embarrassed, humiliated. So I blamed you instead because admitting the truth made me feel stupid. Hearing her finally say it out loud hurt. But strangely, it also freed something inside me. Emily looked up carefully. You did not deserve any of what I said. And you definitely did not deserve what I allowed people to believe about you. I took a slow breath before answering. No, I did not. She nodded painfully. I know. Then she slid a check across the table. Detectives recovered part of the stolen money through frozen accounts and insurance claims connected to one of Nathan's fake businesses. Combined with Patricia's assistance, it was enough to cover nearly the full loan amount. Dad, please take it. I stared at the number for several seconds. Then, pushed it gently back toward her. No. Emily looked shocked. You and the baby need stability more than I do. Dad, after everything. Listen to me carefully, Emily. Nathan already stole enough from this family. I will not let him steal your future too. That was the moment she broke down again. This time, I held her the same way I used to when she was little and frightened during thunderstorms. And for the first time since waking up in that alley, I finally felt like I had my daughter back. 6 months later, I stood beside a hospital window holding my grandson for the very first time. Emily named him Caleb. Tiny hands, dark hair, completely unaware of the chaos he had entered this world through. As I rocked him gently in my arms, I thought about how close I came to losing everything.